everybody, this is Strategywizard again. Today I'm going to be doing a review of Forbidden Stars. This is a 2 to 4 player space conquest game that is epic to say the least, and wow, it's designed by a lot of people. James Kniffen, or Niffen, I don't know if the K is silent or not, Samuel W. Bailey, and Corey Koenigsegg, something like that. Sorry if I got it wrong. It's published by Fantasy Flight. It's a long game. I don't even know what... It really depends on the number of players. I mean, 2 players is going to be faster than with 3 or 4. For sure, it would make a pretty big difference. But this, to me, for those who are familiar, I would consider this something on the lines of a mix between a Game of Thrones, the 2nd edition board game, and Twilight Imperium, because you get a combination of both games, which we'll see that in a second. So let's go ahead and go to the table. I will show you a general overview of how the game works. There's way too many rules to go over, but I'll show you the gist of it, and then I will tell you what I think. Okay, there's a lot to get in the screen here, so I did my best. This game has a lot of components, as you can see, and this is the setup for a 4-player game. 2-player would be a lot tinier because there'd be half as many tiles. So instead of there being 4x3, it would be 2x3 in a 2-player game. It's 3x3 in a 3-player game, and it's the full 4x3 in a 4-player game. So keep that in mind. If you're not going to play as many players, it won't take up as much table space, and it won't take as long for sure. But there are a lot of things going on here, but as crazy as it might seem, it's fairly intuitive. Now, I'm not going to go over all the rules and everything, but I'm going to give you a gist of how this works because, you know, I think that's enough to give you an idea if you'd like it. So, first of all, everyone is going to start off with a race sheet, and the race sheets are really nice because they give you 2 important things, well, a few important things, all your units and buildings and how much it costs, these little gear symbols, and how many dice you get to roll in combat, and how much health you have, and how much morale you have, and whatnot. On the back, it shows you your starting units, so you know what you start with, because each race is different. And it also gives you a little flavor text and all that good stuff. So it's just a very well-made player sheet, very functional and just entertaining. So everyone gets that, and the thing is, each one, like I say, everyone has a special power. And the special powers are all, I'm just going to say this, I don't think the special powers are, you know, game-breaking like other special powers that some games have, but they're very interesting. I mean, like the orcs, they're able to basically build units where they normally, whenever they don't have a factory there, which is great. The Eldar have an ability to where they can teleport basically their units across the cosmos and whatnot. So there's different things going on here, but they're not super game breaking. But every unit is different for each character because, you know, everyone has a basic ground unit, everyone has a basic ship unit, etc. But how many dice, the health and morale is different for each different race, and I think that's really cool. And not only that, but the miniatures even look different. And that's, to me, one of the big awesome things about this game. Not only are the miniatures very detailed and well made, but they're all different for each race. And I'll just show you one really interesting example. The orcs over here, their big, bulky, expensive unit is this robot looking thing, this tank with tiny little feet, versus the Eldar have this very elegant looking piece right here. A lot of detail. The fact that the miniatures are different is just very impressive. So it makes it easy. I mean, apart from the fact that the unit colors are different, you know, the Eldar are yellow, the orcs are green, Chaos Space Marines are red, and the regular Space Marines are blue. That's already great enough. But then having all the different units and the way they look, it just adds a lot of flavor. But the way this game works, once you do the setup, which is somewhat, it's modular in the sense that it's always going to be the same layout of 2x3, 3x3, but the tiles are double-sided. Even your home worlds are double-sided. They're not always super different on the other side, but they are different, and it's important. So whenever you get dealt out these tiles, each player will take turns placing them, and as they place them, one thing I don't have on this board, mainly because it would just make it look even more cluttered, and for this review, I didn't want to have it too cluttered. Everyone's going to have these little tokens here, which are objectives, and you're going to give 2 of those out of the 6 that you have, 2 of those to each opponent player. And so whenever they place a tile, they have to place those objective tokens from from the different players in these little objective token slots on the planets, which means those are the places that you have to go. You have to go get your objectives. So, someone might, let me just grab this over here again. Let's just say the Eldar had one of mine, and they put it way over here on their home planet. I have to go way over there to get that objective, which is not so easy necessarily, but maybe I can do it. But here's the thing. You only have to get as many objectives as there are players in the game. So in a 4-player game, you only have to get 4 of your 6 objectives. So they'll be scattered on the board, and you have to go get 4 of the 6 in a 4-player game. In a 3-player game, it's 3 of 4 that would be out there. And in a 2-player game, you'd have to get both of the ones that you gave your opponent, but that would also be a lot easier to do because they have to set them out immediately. They have to at least put one out in a 2-player game, so as soon as they play a tile, you know where one of your objectives is going to be, and you can place your home base close to it if you wanted to. So it's modular. You get to flip them over, decide which one you want where, and you place your units as you see fit as you place your tiles out. And you'll notice each tile, each system has voids, which have no planets, and then they have worlds, which are the ones with planets. And that's important because spaceships can never be where a world is, and ground units can never be in a void, which is different than other games that are similar because, like in Twilight Imperium, they can always be in the same places. It's just known that the spaceships are not on the planet. But here, this system is like, it's just different. You just have to think of it like this. This ship, if you did a move action, they could just skip right over to here. They don't have to go. You don't have to move here, then here. You can just skip from any void to the next system. In fact, they could jump from here to attack all the way over here. But here's the interesting thing about that. Whenever it comes to your action, and this is where it's very similar to Game of Thrones, you have these handy-dandy hexagonal tokens here, and these allow you to secretly place what your orders are going to be. And you just take turns. First player, who has this very attractive first player token, and this will pass around at the end of each round, but whoever's the first player, they'll be the first person to place one of their tokens. They secretly place it face down in one of these tiles, and no one knows what you're going to do. But you take turns placing these face down, and you have to place 4 each round, which ones you do is up to you, but the thing is you can stack them. So let's say you place this. Someone else would come along and place one of theirs on top of yours, and that makes it to where before you can resolve yours, they have to take theirs off and resolve it, which means even if you're the first player, it could be that all of your stuff is buried under other people's tokens. Theoretically, it's possible. And that would mean that you could have gone first, but now someone else has to go before you can to uncover your token. You could end up having 3 or 4 tokens stacked up, and it means the very top one has to go before the next one, before the next one. That's an interesting thing because sometimes you're purposely trying to avoid placing your order tokens in a certain place because you want to go first there, and you're trying to hold off placing it. And then, but if someone else wants, if the last player really wants to, they can wait and then plop theirs right on top of yours since they get the last play. That's a humongous part of the strategy here, is how these order tokens get placed and timing and everything. But it's powerful the way these work. There's only 4 of them, very simple. You have advance, which is how you move or attack, and you just place one of those somewhere, and from one adjacent system only. You can't move from a whole bunch of them like in Twilight Imperium, but from one adjacent system you can move into this system, and you could also move and really the point is, what's interesting, like say ships can jump from one void here all the way over here. They don't have to, worry about moving here then here. It's just this system. If you move from a void here, you can move to any void here. Ground units have to go through a chain of friendly spaces, a spaceship here to get to here. But if they want to get here, that's to be a spaceship here, people here of theirs, and a spaceship here, so they can go boom and land here. But they have to come from the same adjacent system. But and that's also how you start combat, of course. If you move into where other people are, then you start a combat. And we'll talk about combat in a little bit. This is for producing units. So if you want to produce units, if you have a factory, you play this. If you don't have a factory, you can build a factory if you own the planet. So that's really important, and obviously that's how you get your units built. And then you have the Strategize, which is one of the best ones in my opinion, because this one is one that you can bluff with, because you can go throw this thing somewhere adjacent to you, like, you know, oh, I'm going to put it over here. It makes people think that you're planning on moving over there, but really you're just going to flip this over and you're just going to use this, which basically what this does, it makes it to where you get to either buy new cards, because combat's done with cards and dice. You can buy new cards for your hand, and you can buy new special order cards. Your special order cards make it to where you can get bonuses for future order tile placements. But then once you're done, you discard this one. You discard these tiles on top of your event deck, which we'll talk about in a second. And then of course you have this token, which allows you to do two things. You can claim the little symbols here. The tokens are over there. You get to claim anything that you own. You get any world you own, you get to claim those symbols immediately, and then you can use your special power if you so choose. Now, that's all pretty straightforward. You're building, you're moving, you're upgrading your cards, and then you are either claiming these tokens or using your power. That's pretty much it. And at the end of a round, you'll get resources based on these green gears. Your resources are done on this little dial, which is pretty handy. You start off with 6, and you can increase, decrease as you spend. Very nice way of keeping track of that. And then as turns end, you just keep on moving down here until you get to round 8, which is the last round. The other way is if you claim, of course, enough objectives to win. Now, the combat is done in a way that I really appreciate, because you start off with a hand of cards. These cards, you have 2 of each card, and you have 10 total cards. You'll shuffle this. You'll deal yourself 5 at the start of a combat, and you will roll dice equal to the total dice value of all your units. So you roll the dice, then you get these cards, and you're going to do 3 rounds of card play. Now, let's just go ahead and do a quick little rundown here. Let's say you could roll 5 dice, and these dice, by the way, really nice. Engraved, beautiful custom dice. Let's say you roll, and in this case, now here's what you need to know. There's only 3 sides to these, 3 different symbols, I should say, to these dice. And all of them are represented here. You have defense, which means you take one less damage per defense. There's morale, which is what you actually need to win the battle. And then you have guns, which is how much damage you do. So you want to have a lot of damage, but you also want morale, because if by the time this battle's over, if no one has been completely killed, whoever has the most morale will win, and the other person has to retreat. So morale is good, but it's not functional in the middle of the battle. So you want it, but it's also not what you want if you want to kill everyone. So depending on if you know you could win or not, that becomes more or less valuable. But attacking is really powerful, and defense, of course, protects you. Now, here's the thing. You roll that, and that's done. You're not going to re-roll anything else for the rest of this match. But you're going to play a card, and your cards give you some permanent symbols like attack or defense, but they also give you special abilities. Like in this case, you gain 1 die. Well, gaining 1 die is awesome. You get to roll another die immediately, so that's great. You get 1 morale, you get to roll a die, and then the bottom part is pretty much always, and it may be always actually, is based on what units you have in this battle. In this case, if you have a scout or a space marine or a strike cruiser, you have to have one of those to use this ability. Then you can either rally a unit, which is if you get routed, and I'll explain that in a second, or you can gain 1 morale die. So you can just take a die, flip it over to morale, and bam. So basically, if you have one of these, you're going to have one of these options. Another card like this one gives you defense, which is great. You need some defense. And if you're attacking, you look at your opponent's face-down combat card, and you gain, you look at your opponent's face-down combat card, so that's nice. If you're attacking, which means that, if you're the defender, you don't get that bonus. But you can also gain either 2 attack or 2 defense. Now, these are temporary. If it's a circle, that's temporary, but that's important because you can go 3 rounds of playing cards. These will disappear after this particular round, but still, getting to choose that is huge. And if you have a scout or strike cruiser, you can spend 1 morale die to retreat one of your units. So if you know you're losing, you can get ready to retreat and save yourself some misery. So all that is awesome, and it really makes a big difference because each card is so powerful. And the strategy card, and this is where this comes in really, really important. The strategy, I say card, but the tile that lets you upgrade, you can go in this wonderful deck and you can buy any cards that you want. However, you have to have the leadership value, which is shown here, 0. These are all you can get at the beginning, but these have 2 and these have 3. That's building cities. If you build cities, which are these nice little ice cream cone upside down shaped thingies, these cities, the more cities you have, the higher leadership. However, if you have 3 cities, you have 3 leadership. So you need to build cities so that you can get the good cards. But cities don't do you any other good, so you have to plan ahead and think, man, do I really want some good cards? I need to start building some cities. But you can upgrade and get some really awesome cards like these that give you 3 attack. Then you gain 2 dice. That's huge. And then if you have a Warlord Titan or Battle Bards, which are the best units that they have, you can spend any number of gun dice. For each gun die you spend, you gain 2 temporary gun symbols. So that way you can just go for the gusto and try to blow someone to smithereens and just end the battle now. So that's awesome. Really cool how you can upgrade. But the thing is, you roll those dice. You play your card. Well, let's say you played this card first. Well, then, after you resolve damage, and then you go again. You'll play your next card. Let's say it's this one, like so, where you can still see this extra defense symbol. You still get to keep that for this next battle round, but you'll also gain this morale, and then you'll gain these things. And then for the third one, maybe you'll play this one. Well, now you've got these 3 cards. You have a permanent defense, you have a morale, and now you have this gun symbol, and then you gain these. So as you are playing these cards, you want to make sure that you play things that are going to help you the most over the course of the 3 rounds of battle. And that's a very, very awesome strategic element, because the dice, they don't control so much. They're important, but they're not game-changing like, did I roll 3 6s or did I get 3 1s? It's not like that. Here, you're getting defense, you're getting attack, or you're getting morale to help you actually win if no one gets completely slaughtered. That's awesome to me. However, here's the thing. If you hurt a unit, you'll notice there's HP on these for each unit. If someone doesn't do enough damage in one particular round, you can rout one of your units. And I'll just use this as an example. Let's just get the big daddy over here. My gosh, this awesome fellow here. Their big Titan for the Space Marines has a whopping, how much? 5 HP. So if your opponent does 4 damage, you can say, you know what, I'm going to rout this unit. You just knock it over on its side, and that shows it's routed, and it's a bummer because it doesn't get to count its morale value at the end of the battle, and you can't use it anymore. If there's a card that requires the Titan to be in play to use its special bonus, you won't get to use that special bonus if you have no more other Titans standing up. But he doesn't die. He just gets routed. You cannot continue to take 4 damage on this. Say, oh, still not dead, still not dead. You have to continue to rout other units or hurt other units. But ultimately, if there's enough damage done to kill something, they're dead. And once everyone's routed, if all your units are routed, it still takes enough damage to kill someone to actually remove them from the board. So let's just say this was the only unit you had. If every turn, your opponent only did 4 damage at a time, you would rout him the first time, and then 4 damage would do nothing, 4 damage would do nothing, and they would not kill you. So that's really important. Having those high HP units makes a big difference because you can stay alive longer. However, if let's say you had this little bitty guy and this guy, if you routed this guy, the next damage you take has to go to the little bitty guy. He'll probably die, and then you'll be left with this guy. But again, if they don't do 5, they still can't kill him, and he'll be there until the end, and then you count your morale and see who has to retreat. So that's a really, really important factor. But basically, that's how combat works. You roll your dice, you get those cards, you draw 5, so you never know exactly what you're going to have, and then you play 3 over a sequence of 3 rounds of combat, resolve damage and everything each time. Awesome, awesome mechanic that I'm really impressed with. Then, finally, at the end of the entire round, you've done your combat, you've moved all your units and everything, you do the cleanup, you claim any objective tokens that you now own. If you're on a planet that has one, you take your objective token, and then you'll draw an event card. Now, if you've played a strategy action, that will be face down, or it'll be put on your event deck. automatically. Any other tokens that you didn't want to actually resolve, you can just discard those and put them on your deck, on your event deck. And your event deck, you're going to draw however many tiles you have on here, you're going to draw one. If you have none, if you never put any on here, then you'll draw one anyway just for the sake of this little symbol here, but you won't get to do the action. But otherwise, let's say you had two here because you played a strategy tile and you discarded another one, you would draw two and you would look at these, you would choose which one you wanted to do. Now there's scheme and tactics cards. Tactic cards you get to keep. Purchase one order upgrade, reducing its material cost by 1 for each friendly world containing a bastion. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Tactics get discarded immediately. You just use it and it happens. Schemes you get to keep, like this one. Place this card in your play area and discard all of your other schemes. At the start of an assessed damage step of combat, you may discard this card to gain 2 temporary defense and 1 additional temporary defense for each forge token you have, which are some of those special tokens over there that you can get from these little red symbols. So these are very powerful and helpful for you, so you want to get these because they really help you a lot. But also, you'll have to move one of these warps that you've placed, because earlier, and whenever you do this at the beginning, whenever you set up the game, these warp zones here, you'll place those as part of the setup, and they block movement. You can't go through these, and that's an important part of the strategy at the beginning. You can purposely block a path so that your opponent can't get you at the beginning. But it's not going to stay that way, because these cards, whoosh, whoosh, they tell you how you're going to move. You have to move one of them. So in this case, from this perspective, if this is the player, they would have to move. Let me just make this very clear. If you're sitting from this angle, you would have to move a warp either down this way. Actually, that's the only one you could do. He would have to do it that way. If you had this one, you'd have to flip one, like say this one, you could flip it this way. So, and sometimes you may not be able to move one, just depending on the situation, because you can't move one to the absolute edge. But the point is, they're going to be moving, and that's also a really, really important part of the gameplay, because as you go along, you'll think, oh, next turn I'm going to move in there and do whatever, or you think, oh, I'm protected, the warp gate's there, but then next thing you know, it moves, and wow, suddenly you're wide open and can get destroyed. That's huge, awesome, and having more tokens on here means you can draw more cards, and maybe you're more worried about moving, how you can move a warp, than you are about the actual text. That's up to you to decide. So pretty much that is the game. It's, there's more to it than that. These tokens over here, you've got, like say, these little defense and offense temporary tokens that you can add. You get these tokens and forge tokens and reinforcements, and you use those in different ways. These are for spending for units, and reinforcements you can use to help you in battle, but not going into all the detail of all the little rules. That is pretty much how you play the game. It's just very epic, combat heavy. I mean, it is definitely focusing on combat all the time. So let's go ahead and go up, and I will tell you what I think about this game. Okay, so here's the thing. This game, Forbidden Stars, there's one problem, which is that the license for Warhammer, Fantasy Flight doesn't have the license they would need to make expansions. So this game is just what it is. There's not going to be any more expansions unless some weird something happens that's unforeseeable. So you can pretty much assume that this is going to be it, what comes in the box. But that being said, what comes in the box is pretty impressive. You have component quality. I mean, the miniatures, to me now, I don't know a lot about miniatures. I'm not a humongous connoisseur necessarily, and I'm not knowledgeable about all the ins and outs, but I think most people can agree that these miniatures are just really great quality. Now, what's nice is that each faction of the 4 factions, all of their units look different, and even not only they look different, but they're all functionally a little different from each other. I mean, there might be some that overlap maybe a little bit, or maybe are identical, but overall, they're all a little different as far as their functionality, and they all look different, which is great. And since they're such high quality miniatures, just the appearance on the board the table is just awesome. The cardboard tiles for the map, great, thick, sturdy. The player sheets are really nice. I mean, I love these things. The fact they're double-sided is nice, so you can have, all that information back here for your starting units and everything, and the flavor text on the back. Everything's very functional and very useful. The dice are great because they're engraved nicely. Love the dice, and they have rounded corners. Everything is just really great quality. I mean, I love the components. Cards are great. Everything's wonderful. Have no complaints. The only thing is, if anyone cares, the cards are not, they don't have a linen finish on them, but they're still good quality cards. So, that being said, components are great. Replayability, I think, is definitely there. Not only because of the modular setup, which the modular setup isn't just super modular, but it makes each game a little different because all the tiles are double-sided, and the fact that the order that you place them, and then the warp boy, I can't remember what they're called. I'm just going to call them the warp sticks, the warp zones, whatever you want to call them, that block you. The starting setup is however you want to start. You can place them in different places, and as you play, how they move will change. All those kind of things are really awesome, and the fact that you customize your combat deck, and that over time, and how you play. Do you focus on the cities so that you can get your leadership high enough to get the big units and the special cards, and do you go for big units or cards, or try to go to both, or do you try to get a lot of bastions? Focus on building those bastions to protect your borders, or do you just try to get a lot of factories so you can build all over the place? I mean, you have a lot of options. So the replayability, all that's there, and that's moving right into the strategy aspect, which this game strategically is very heavy, and which is a great thing for me, because here you have so many options are at your fingertips. You have to decide with the order tokens. Do you want to bluff? Because you can bluff, since you can place tokens that are adjacent to your own systems. You can make someone think that you're moving towards them, but really you're not. You're just going to use a strategy token or whatever, and people will be surprised by that. It'll mess them up because they might purposely, assuming that, change what they want to do. So you have that bluffing mechanism, which is cool, but also just in general, where you move your units, how you decide where your focus is on building units, getting better cards, because both are very valid ways to make yourself more powerful. And how fast do you want to start building cities? Because every time the more cities you build, that's the more other things you're not building. So you have to sometimes put your units and other buildings to the back burner so you can get your cities built up to get really cool stuff. And that's an interesting balance that you're trying to weigh, and sometimes it's about timing. If you can get a warp gate to go thrown in the right place to protect a border so that you have an extra turn before you can get attacked, that could be your chance to build up something like that. But there's just so much going on, so much interesting. It's just amazing. So strategically, way high. Love the strategy level here. There's dice, but the dice have 3 sides, and they're all useful. So it's not like you're going to roll and get a bunch of 1s as opposed to a bunch of 6s. The dice you roll, they're all useful. Maybe not so much depending on if your opponent rolls all defense. You don't want to roll defense. But the point is that generally speaking, you're going to be happy with what you get. You're either getting a lot of morale so you can win the battle, or you're getting a lot of offense to kill units, all that kind of good stuff. So that's great. I love the way the dice work in here, because it makes it, the fact it's card-driven and dice-driven at the same time, and the dice aren't 6-sided, 1 through 6. They're 6-sided, but only 3 symbols. It makes it to where there's a lot more control at your disposal of how you win. So, that being said, awesome there. This game gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Hands down. It's not my favorite game, because if you've seen my Cosmic Encounter review, you know that's my favorite, but this still gets a 10 for me for being just absolutely amazing. I will always enjoy playing this game. I would never turn down someone who wanted to play. If someone said, hey, let's play Forbidden Stars, I'd say, ho, it's about time, because I love it. I love the way it looks. I love the way all the mechanics work together to make this fascinating battle, and there's no turtling really, because the clock is ticking, and since the tokens that you need to claim to win are out there where someone else is, it forces combat, which is a great thing to me. It demotivates turtling. It makes people go, wow, what's the best way for me to get it? It's not when am I going to go attack someone, it's, well, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. It's not if I'm going to go attack someone, it's how soon and with how much power. How patient can I be but not take too long? Because if you take too long, you're going to lose, because other people are going to be trying to build up to move to take their tokens so they can win. And I think that's an awesome mechanism. The game just works very well. I mean, and even though there's a lot of rules, as far as maybe there's some nitpicky stuff maybe, but overall it makes a lot of sense. Once you start playing, it just kind of flows. You just kind of get in the groove of it, which is very similar to me to Game of Thrones in that way. The rule book for Game of Thrones is huge, but once you really understand how to play, it's not really that hard. You kind of go, oh, well, this all makes sense, and that's the way this is. Everything just makes sense. So even though it might seem heavy and dense, and on some level it is, but really once you've played for a little while, you just keep going and you make stuff happen and you have a good time doing it. So highly recommended for me. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll get to them. Let me know if you agree, disagree. I'm very impressed with Fantasy Flight on this one, and I just want to say this: even though there's no expansions coming out, wow, it's still worth it. To me, I'm so glad I have this. I don't need expansions for this for me to be so satisfied with my purchase. So keep that in mind. And if you disagree with that, let me know down in the comments. But that being said, I really appreciate you watching the video. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. So take care, everybody. I'll see you then. Bye.